Defender of the Pack, the Other Wolf series, a prequel novella written by Heather G. Harris. Narrated by Elise Gibbs. Chapter 1. So I killed him. Silence greeted my announcement. The glares being directed my way were icy. I didn't blame them.
That makes Lucy your new alpha,
Greg Manners explained calmly. His words dropped into the silence like stone. The glares intensified. I cleared my throat and smiled harder, like that would help. I'll be taking over Lord Samuel's office, and I will be having an open door policy. If you have any issues, please do come and see me. My background as an accountant was showing. Office hours and open door policies were things I was comfortable with. Being an alpha werewolf was as far from my comfort zone as I could get. I appreciate that there will be a transition period whilst we all get used to each other. I want you to know that I won't be calling a full pack tourney at this time. Your rank within the pack is secure for now. However, I expect Greg Manners here will become my second, so he'll fight with the current second, Mark Oates, to confirm his position. Any questions? I looked around hopefully for someone to engage with me, but the only response was from Mark Oates. He stood up and started to strip off his clothes. I hadn't meant they would fight right now. I glanced to my left, where Manners was standing legs akimbo, arms folded. He met my slightly panicked look with the barest of winks. Obviously, he wasn't fazed. He unfolded his sizable forearms, reached down to the bottom of his t-shirt, and peeled it off. I looked away hastily. I'd only been a werewolf for a matter of weeks, and I'd definitely not gotten used to all this casual nudity. Manners had been a werewolf for only a day or two, but was completely unabashed. We'd stopped on the long drive down here for me to teach him everything I knew about being a werewolf. The lesson had been depressingly short. Mark Oates had to jump on Manners in that he started shifting first, but at only 2 minutes long, Manners had a very fast shift. Obviously surprised, the pack members started to whisper among themselves. Manners sat patiently on his hind legs and calmly groomed himself as he waited another 2 minutes for Oates to finish shifting. My own shift takes a mere second, but my wolf and I are different in more ways than one. It was clear that the speed of Manners' shift had pissed off Oates, and he didn't wait for me to start the fight. Despite this being a friendly bout, he bared his teeth and raised his tail high. Uh-oh, he obviously wasn't going to pull his punches. I felt a twinge of fear in my stomach. Manners had never fought in wolf form before. We'd done some play pouncing, of course, but it wasn't the same thing at all. On 2 legs, Manners is as deadly as they come. His brethren, born and raised, bred for the sole purpose of protecting the dragon shifters. He was handed his first gun before he was given a pencil. Okay, I'm exaggerating, but not much. Rumour has it that there's not a single weapon he can't handle. But suddenly having 4 legs and a tail to balance and move is a whole new game. He would need to put all his trust in his inner wolf. Manners was virtually a stranger to me. Although I didn't know him well, he was close to my best friend, Jess, so that made us something. In a pack with no allies or friends, something was better than nothing. Oates and Manners were assessing each other. Both were bigger than average wolves, at least 100 kilos apiece. They were both grey wolves, which made it difficult to tell them apart. Manners had slate grey eyes versus Oates' brown ones, but if their wolfish counterparts took over, those eyes would flash gold. I wouldn't be able to use eye colour as a way of identifying them. Then, I noticed that Manners had a slash of black fur across his shoulders. That was enough for me to tell them apart. No sooner had I identified their distinguishing features than they clashed. The only sign that this wasn't a deadly contest was the sound of ominous growls. If their intentions had been lethal, they'd have slunk in silently on quiet paws. Oates made the first move and barreled into Manners' side to make him lose his footing. Manners barely moved. I suppressed a fist pump. Oates' eyes flashed with fury, and he leapt at Manners, teeth ready to rip and rend. Fur went flying, and Oates yowled as Manners ripped out a particularly large chunk of it, exposing red, raw, bleeding flesh. Manners dropped back to give Oates a chance to regroup. It was clear that he didn't consider Oates a threat, and his courtesy infuriated Oates even more. He ran across the space between them to crash into Manners, who easily sidestepped the furious assault. As Oates sailed past him, Manners bit into his leg and hamstrung him. The bite was precision perfect, and Oates let out a yip of pain. Instead of landing on his feet nearby, Oates skidded and landed in a heap as his leg gave way. Again, Manners stood back and waited.
"He is an excellent hunter,"
Esme said, her tone full of admiration. Esme is my wolf. She shares my skin and lives in my head and my heart. He is impressive, I admitted.
"You should mate with him,"
she suggested. I felt myself blush and hoped no one would notice as the battle continued. Blushing doesn't exactly say tough-ass alpha. I ignored her comment and focused on the fight, what was left of it. Oates limped forward pathetically. He might be down, but he refused to be out. The rest of the fight was painful to watch, as Manners harried him until Oates was covered in dozens of small cuts and slashes. Oates was clearly exhausted and fighting a losing battle, but he refused to give up. If he hadn't been hamstrung so early in the fight, he might have stood a chance, but now pure obstinacy was the only thing keeping him on his feet. Finally, Manners felt that he'd made his point. He thundered into Oates and used his momentum and his skull to send his opponent flying. Then he rested one of his heavy paws on Oates's throat. The threat was clear, and the atmosphere suddenly grew tense, as the whole pack collectively held their breath. Would Manners kill him? I hoped not, because it wasn't necessary in this kind of ranking bout. But I didn't know Manners well enough. At 16, he joined the military and had risen fast through the ranks until he joined the Special Forces, where he became the type of soldier that would have to kill you if he told you what he'd done. Death wasn't something foreign to him. I was holding my breath too, but Esme was full of anticipation, cheering him on, willing him to rip out Oates' throat. I love her, but she's a bloodthirsty cow. Manners' wolf must have been chanting the same thing as Esme, but his eyes remained slate grey. He was in control of his wolf, and the moment passed. He removed his paw from Mark Oates's throat and let him live. A sigh passed around the room. Manners padded back to my side on all fours, then shifted. 2 minutes later, he was standing before me on 2 legs, buck naked. I didn't know where to look. This is a man who works out. His muscles have muscles. I stared determinedly into his eyes. He went down on one knee and bowed his head.
"Alpha,"
he greeted me.
"Beta,"
Esme instructed me.
"You must acknowledge him as our second, our beta."
"Beta," I said loudly. The assembled pack stomped rhythmically, and the sound echoed around the room. Some sort of ceremony that I was ignorant about had been concluded. Chapter 2. Manners rose and calmly pulled on his boxers and jeans. How do I know what he was wearing? Okay, I admit it. I snuck a peek when no one was watching. He was holding his t-shirt loosely in his hand. He had a slash or 2 on his body, but the shifter kick-started his healing, and even as I watched, they closed and disappeared. He made no effort to cover his deliciously defined torso. I couldn't blame him. If I was that cut, I'd show it off too. However, it was distracting. Think innocent, friendly thoughts, I told myself. Oates was still slumped in the corner of the room. He hadn't even tried to shift into human form. Siren was by his side, stroking his fur and glaring at Manners. Siren was a goth, and her all-black ensemble made her look funereal. Thick black eyeliner accented her glare. The silence in the room was deafening as everyone looked at me. Shit, this was my gig. I smiled so widely that my cheeks hurt. Right, Manners is second. Good meeting. See you. See you? Ugh, I'm simply the worst at this alpha business. As I turned and marched out of the room, Manners fell into step behind me.
"You worry too much about what they think of us,"
Esme observed. I want them to like us, I admitted, not caring how pathetic it sounded.
"We don't need their affection, just their obedience. With time they will grow to care, as will we."
I care now.
"I don't. They weren't very welcoming to us when we got turned," she huffed.
"They were all right, just cautious, closed off."
"They weren't friendly and it made you sad. I don't like things that make you sad."
I sent her a warm wave of affection, a mental hug.
Esme is a wolf. She's feral, and her moral compass is very different to mine. But she loves me and takes care of me. I love every inch of her wild heart. I've got you, I told her. We'll be okay. I'll get the pack to like us, or at least respect us, one way or another. Manners and I walked in silence to my office. I shut the door behind us to give us some privacy against excellent werewolf hearing. Then I sat behind Lord Wilfred Samuel's desk and swivelled back and forth in his chair. Manners sat in the guest chair, rigidly at attention. His years as a soldier were showing. "Well, good job," I offered. He nodded, his eyes still assessing me. I couldn't cope with that clinical glance for a moment longer. "This is so weird," I blurted out, breaking the silence before it became uncomfortable. "Last time I was in this room, I was sitting where you are, and Lord Samuel was in this chair." Lord Samuel had been eccentric, strict, and kind. He'd gambled way too much, fritting away the pack's accumulated riches. His relationship with his son Archie had been strained ever since Archie had embarked on a drug-fueled roller coaster. But Lord Samuel had been a friend of my bestie, Jess Sharp. Because of their friendship, he'd agreed to save my life by turning me into a werewolf. I didn't regret the change. Esme was everything to me, and it sure beat being in a coffin. "You'll get used to it," Manners offered finally. I got the impression he wasn't used to rolling out comforting words. Until recently he'd worked as the number 2 to the Dragon King. Like me, he'd been turned into a werewolf so that his life could be saved. Now, here we were, both of us fish out of water. But at least Manners had been born and raised in the other realm. He knew about all things magical, while I was floundering as I tried to wrap my head around a place where magic was real. "So I'm your second," Manners continued. I blinked. Shit. I should probably have checked with him before I declared that to the whole pack. Yeah. Is that okay?" Manners studied me. "Sure," he said finally. "I can take on a hostile pack." His confidence wasn't surprising. He was deadly, and he knew it. "No lethal force," I clarified. "No killing people." "No, you've already done that." His quip scored a direct hit, and I winced. I had killed Lord Samuel at his lordship's behest, and whoever killed the Alpha inherited the pack. Lord Samuel had fought with the Cheshire Alpha, Jimmy Rain. Rain had cheated and coated his claws in poison, fatally wounding his adversary. So I'd killed Lord Samuel to keep the pack out of Rain's abusive hands. So here I was, Alpha to a pissed-off pack that didn't seem overly grateful that I'd saved them from Rain. Marissa strolled in without so much as a knock. Rude. I tried to overlook it because she bore a coffee and a warm smile. Manners leapt to his feet at the intrusion and drew a knife, but he sheathed it again when I gave him a pointed glance, though not before he'd let Marissa see it. "Oh my," she said. "I didn't mean to interrupt. I brought you a coffee, Alpha. A latte. I know you like a latte." Maybe some of the pack were grateful. Maybe it wouldn't be so bad after all. I gave Marissa a huge smile. "Thank you, that's very kind of you." "Next time, knock," Manners ordered gruffly. His eyes narrowed at her rudeness. "Of course," she simpered. She passed me the mug and I took a big sip to show willing. Ugh. Salt. She put salt in my latte. I set down the hot drink and gave her my best smile. "Thank you so much, but just for future reference, I take sugar in my latte, not salt." "Oh no," she gasped, outwardly dismayed. "I'm sorry, Alfred, that wasn't me. Someone else must have slipped in some salt whilst my back was turned." She batted her wide, innocent eyes at me. I wasn't buying what she was selling. I knew girl warfare when I saw it. "Don't worry, we all make mistakes. What's important is that we learn from them. I'll always tolerate the first mistake." And my tone carried the threat. "We should bite her," Esme said grumpily. "My mouth tastes not nice. Blood would clean it out nicely." "Blood is a good palate cleanser," I agreed aloud. Marissa's eyes widened, and for a split second, her fake smile dropped. "Gotcha." "I'll get you another latte," She retrieved the salt-laced beverage from my desk. "Don't bother," I replied. "I'm not thirsty for coffee just now." And I don't trust you not to spit in the next one. After she walked out carrying the offending coffee, Manners grinned. "This is going to be interesting. Did you just imply you'd like to wash your mouth out with her blood?" "I didn't mean to say it out loud," I admitted. "Esme is bloodthirsty." He leaned forward. "You can speak to her, your wolf. I can feel mine, but I can't talk to him." "I'm a piper, remember?" My turning was complicated. I was stabbed with Glimmer, a magic knife that had imbued me with the ability to pipe, to speak to animals. "Right," Manners said, suddenly understanding. He smirked. "That gives you a huge advantage, you know. The pack isn't going to know what hit them."
Chapter 3. There was a knock on my door. I shot Manners a warning look, and he stood up, always ready for battle. His hand hovered, ready to draw a weapon. He leaned against the wall, looking tough and intimidating. "Come in," I called firmly. One of the pups strolled in. He must have been 7 or 8 years old. I couldn't remember his name. I blinked. "Hello," I said finally. "Hi, Alpha, I'm Bobby." He scooted forward, slumped into the chair that Manners had just vacated, and farted loudly. "Better out than in," he said breezily. He wasn't my kid to school in manners, so I let it slide. "Hi, Bobby, what can I do for you?" "I've got a very big problem," he announced solemnly. I leaned forward. "What is it? You can tell me." "I've lost Ham, my wolf," he declared. "Your wolf? You're too young to have called your wolf." "Not my actual wolf, my Ham, my toy. I've had it since I was born. It's missing." I was momentarily speechless. I had been braced for at least a confession of parental abuse. Finally, I stuttered. "You've lost your toy? When did you last see it?" I was repeating the phrase my mum often used when I was looking for something. "If I knew that, it wouldn't be lost," he sassed. "Careful," Manners growled from the side of the room. "Show your Alpha some respect." I shot him a look that said I thought his attitude was overkill. He ignored me. "Will you find it for me? I'll wait here while you shift." Suddenly, Bobby sounded eager. He wanted to see me turn. "Did someone put you up to this?" "The other kid said I should ask you, and it seemed like a good idea. Can you help me?" Bobby was the youngest pup by quite a way. All the other kids had called their wolves, so they were into their teen years. They were using him to see what I would do. "We should shift. That would show them." Esme and I shift insanely fast. All other wolves I've met can do it in 3 to 5 minutes. Lord Samuel had been able to do it in 2, as quickly as Manners. But I'm faster. I can shift in a blink. During the few weeks I'd stayed here before I'd killed Lord Samuel, I had kept my shifting time a secret. It would come out sooner or later, but for now, I'd keep it as a secret weapon in my arsenal. I didn't need a reason to stand out, and I certainly wasn't shifting to find a stuffed toy. "I'll help you look," I said finally. After all, he'd come to me in office hours, and I was keen to help those who came to me, no matter how bizarre their request might be. It seemed that the whole pack was in the pack living room, sprawled on the sofas and beanbags. There was no sign of Oates and Siren. The talking stopped the instant Manners and I entered. I pasted a smile on my face. "Has anyone seen Bobby's wolf toy, Ham?" I asked. Oppressive silence was the response. "Okay, then. Cheers, guys." Then a few people stood up and walked out, including Lord Samuel's son, Archie. I let him go without comment. I'd have to speak to him again, sooner rather than later. Before I'd formally addressed the pack, I had delivered the news of his father's death to him in private. He hadn't responded, just stared at me blankly, before asking if that was all. When I'd confirmed it was, he'd left. I knew there was no love lost between him and his father, but his reaction had been weird. Of course, technically I'm his father's killer, so yeah, maybe weird was normal. I moved around the room, looking under cushions, lifting beanbags. All the while the silence hung in the air, thick and uncomfortable like a heavy woolen jumper that itched and irritated your skin. 30 pairs of eyes were watching me. I moved the heavy curtains to one side, checking behind them. I took a moment to marvel at the lilac sky and the turquoise grass, which told me that I was in the other realm. Occasionally I missed the blue skies of the common realm, but mostly I loved the vibrant colours of the magical other realm. "There!" Esme shouted in triumph. Despite herself, she'd gotten invested in the hunt. Where? The bookshelf, hidden in the top right corner. There was no way Bobby could have accidentally left it there. Someone had hidden it from him on purpose. I hate bullying. There are good-natured pranks and there is bullying, and this felt like the latter. Who would hide a kid's favourite toy where he couldn't reach? It was just mean. I pulled down the mangy little stuffed toy. It was worn and a bit dirty. Clearly well loved. "Woo! You found him!" Bobby cried. His happiness was infectious, and I smiled, despite the anger that was creeping through my veins on his behalf. "Here you go." I passed him the toy. "Why don't you go and get a cookie from the kitchen?" He turned to his mum. "Can I?" Oops, I probably should have checked that first. My bad. "Yes, go ahead," she said flatly, sending me an unimpressed look. Double oops. I was making friends everywhere I went. Well, in for a penny, in for a pound. I waited until Bobby had shut the door behind him. "Someone put that toy where Bobby couldn't see or reach it. I want to be clear that bullying will not be tolerated within my pack." As I looked around the room, the occupants suddenly found their shoes very interesting. They were all in on it, whatever it was. Fuck. Bobby wasn't the one being bullied. I was. Great. I levelled one last glare at the room before walking out with manners, following on my heels. As I returned to my office, I saw that the door was slightly ajar. We had left it closed. I sighed before pushing it open. I don't know what I was expecting, but at first glance everything looked okay. Then I stepped inside. A human nose might not have picked it up immediately, but a wolf's nose is something else. Our senses are sharper in wolf form, but even on 2 legs, the smell was rank. There was something putrid in my office. Whether Bobby knew it or not, and I strongly suspected not, he'd been an accomplice in getting me out of my office so something could be hidden there. I followed the stench to the radiator. Stuffed behind it was a rotting fish carcass. I sighed, and thought that I seemed to be doing that a lot lately. I didn't used to be a sire. Evidently, power was changing me. "I'll clear it up," Manners said. "Go grab a shower on an early night or something." I opened my mouth, but he waved away my objection before I could voice it. "Leaders don't get covered in fish guts," he said grimly. "I'm your second. That's my job." "Well, that doesn't seem fair." He shrugged. "Life isn't fair. Besides, I've touched worse. Go on." I ignored the fact that he was bossing me about when it should have been the other way around. I was tired. It had been a long day of constant passive-aggressive nonsense, and suddenly a shower seemed like a great idea. And Esme loves a shower. "Let's get clean," she encouraged me, chivying us along. I let her guide us through our new bedroom and tried to ignore the hollow feeling in my stomach that felt a lot like loneliness. Chapter 4. Esme forced a change on us. It was the first time she'd ever tried to do so, but I didn't fight it. We were on 4 in an instant. We leapt forward and clamped our jaws around Lord Samuel's vulnerable throat. We were at full strength and didn't hesitate as we ripped out our alpha's throat with all of our might. It took mere seconds for the light to leave his eyes. His chest stopped moving and he lay as still as a stuffed animal. We threw back our head and howled, not in triumph, but in sorrow. I gasped, jerking upright. My heart was hammering and I was trapped in my duvet,
Panicking, I fought it off. "It's okay, we're okay, it was a dream," Esme soothed. "A memory," I countered bitterly. "We're okay," Esme repeated. I could feel her confusion. She didn't understand why the memory affected me so much. To her, death is a part of life. "We're okay," I agreed. Maybe I needed to see a psychologist. Or maybe not. Talking about the wolf in my head was a sure way to get myself committed. Even though I'd showered only hours before, I went back to the bathroom. The previous night I just had a quick body wash. Today I needed to wash my hair. Besides, I needed to scrub away the nightmare and the phantom blood on my skin. I stood under the blisteringly hot spray as Esme purred in my head, luxuriating in the smell of the lavender shower soap. I reached for the shampoo and put a good splurge into my palm. "No!" Esme shouted. "It smells disgusting." The smell of lavender had obscured my ability to scent properly. I lifted the shampoo to my nose and nearly threw up. It smelled disgusting, like really disgusting. My pearlescent shampoo had been mixed with excrement. I washed it off my palm, inches from collapsing in tears. Who did that? Who put stuff in shampoo? That was just vile. Yes, I'd killed their alpha, but at his behest. I wasn't the bad guy here, God damn it. Tears welled, and the loneliness roared. "Do not leak from your eyes," Esme begged. "We will show them all. We'll kill anyone who dares disrespect us." Her words shouldn't have done, but they made me smile. Then we'll be alpha of a very small pack indeed. "We can repopulate with manners," she suggested, waggling her tail and raising her eyebrows. She was trying to imitate a leer. I burst out laughing and mentally hugged her. "Thank you, I don't need manners. I have you." "You do. Always." I used body wash instead of shampoo. Not the best option, but it would do in a pinch. I cautiously sniffed my conditioner. "Is it safe?" "Smells like normal," Esme said. I slathered it on my hair and felt satisfied. The pranksters had failed. I got dressed and took the time to cleanse, tone and moisturize my face. Today was a new day. Fuck you if you think you're going to mess with me. I straightened my spine, refixed my imaginary tiara, and marched out to face the day. I went first to the kitchen to grab some breakfast. It was early, so it was blessedly empty, save for the steadfast Mrs. Dawes, who was already cooking trays of bacon for the masses. "Good morning, Alpha." She placed a cup of tea in front of me before I could ask for one. Following Marissa's offering, I took a cautious sip. I was relieved when it tasted like actual tea. Mrs. Dawes bustled around the kitchen, making up a bacon sandwich, slathered with butter and tomato ketchup. She stood it in front of me wordlessly, and her kindness made tears prickle at my eyes. "Thank you," I managed. I quickly stuffed food down my throat. You can't cry while you're eating. The meal settled me. "I expect you'll be wanting to go to Common today," Mrs. Dawes commented, "to make sure you have all the magical energy you need to face the coming days." I blinked. "Sure," I agreed. Seemed like a good idea. "No doubt you'll be taking Manners with you. He'll need a recharge after practicing his shift and after his battle with Oates." She was spoon-feeding me what I should do. I was grateful, but I felt bad that I hadn't even considered Manners' needs. Would I ever get the hang of looking after others? Looking after the pack? "Of course," I said, like I'd already considered that. She nodded and started to make some fresh loaves of bread. I itched to join her. I love baking, but perhaps I shouldn't do menial tasks as part of my second day as Alpha. Fed and happy, I went to my office. Manners was already there. The windows were wide open, and a faint smell of fish still wafted through the room. But it was nothing like the scent of the previous day. "How are you feeling?" I asked abruptly. "Fine," he responded. "Any itching?" Itching skin is a sign that you need to recharge your magical batteries. Werewolves need to recharge by occasionally visiting the common realm, The ordinary world where there are no vampires, dragons, trolls, or ogres. Needing to recharge is one of our vulnerabilities. Some magical creatures don't need to hop back and forth between realms. Lucky bastards. To recharge, we pass through a portal that sends us straight to the common realm. Some days I miss the ignorance of being in the common, but mostly I'm glad for my magical existence. After all, it had saved my life, even though it had altered the course of my destiny. Some itching, Manners responded reluctantly. I noted that he hadn't complained. He wouldn't have told me if I hadn't asked him directly. I pursed my lips. You should have said. Come on, let's get you to the portal. I'm not sure if the itching comes from the other realm, he said. It seems localized. I think some of my clothes were laced with itching powder. I grimaced. Well, at least it wasn't just me being targeted with the petty crap. Misery loves company. We shouldn't risk it, I said. You're my second. We can't have you being kicked back into the common in the middle of a fight. Very well, Alpha. I'll call Maxwell and book us in. Maxwell is the fire elemental who runs the local hall. The hall poses as a cafe, Rosie's, but in fact is a front for the portal that allows us to travel between the realms. Maxwell takes his role as guardian seriously, but he's a fun-loving guy, and I liked him as soon as we'd met. There are worse ways to spend your day than hanging out in a trendy cafe, and, quite honestly, I needed some distance from the prank-filled mansion. Manners got off the phone. Do you want the good news or the bad news? Good, please. Maxwell can fit us in. The bad? He can fit us in right now, but he can't let us have a sleepover. We'll have to go to the common now, in the daylight hours. We can stay in the flat for a while, but we'll need to vacate it before the cleaning team come by later. Well, that's not a problem. I shrugged. It'll save us having to pack bags. Come on, let's go. We'll be vulnerable. Manners was clearly unhappy. I raised my eyebrows. When are you ever vulnerable? He flashed a sudden grin. Good point. Whilst I watched, he strapped on 2 guns and 2 knives, then pulled out his phone and called someone. Get me a permit to carry for a close protection detail. Lucy Barrett. Thanks, Summer. He hung up. Who is Summer? I hope the sudden surge of insecurity didn't show in my voice. The Dragon Elite's PA. The Dragon Elite is Emery, Manners' friend and former boss. Manners had served Emery loyally for more than a decade, but when he became a werewolf, Emery decided we should look after each other. That was probably partly because the Dragon Elite is dating Jess, and keeping me safe makes Jess happy. I was grateful for Manners' support, but the phone call reminded me that his allegiance wasn't necessarily to me. Emery has a PA. Sure, she'll get it sorted so we're covered if we get stopped by the police. I'm officially your bodyguard. Tell him he can guard your body any time, Esme said archly. You're embarrassing, I muttered back. She laughed inside my head. Manners raised an eyebrow at my blushing cheeks. I'd love to be on a fly on the wall when you're talking to Esme, he commented, his tone wistful. It's special, I admitted, but sometimes it's a bit trying. Hey! She objected, but she was still laughing. She enjoyed being trying. She was a contrary beast, but I loved her. Chapter 5. Rosie's was busy when we arrived, and a skit of unease ran down my spine. We would be in the common realm and all the cafe occupants might remain in the other, with access to their full range of magical powers. There were fire elementals with flames dancing on their heads. There were water elementals with hair made of translucent watery locks. There were dryads with green skin, and there was a small huddle of witches laughing raucously together. Sitting by himself, a lone wizard was casually using the IR, the intention and release, to make a teaspoon continuously stir his drink. It was a ridiculous use of power that set my teeth on edge. I didn't have much magic, but I had Esme. I had an extra dose of strength, resilience, and fast healing, but apart from my resident werewolf, that was the sum total of my magical prowess. It was no wonder that the wolves were fairly low down on the other power ladder, but it still rankled. Come on, Manners coaxed, gently taking my arm.
We'll be safe enough in the flat for a few hours at least.
The flat was an ungenerous term for the Fort Knox that the fire elementals had installed above Rosie's. As we stepped into the cafe, Maxwell bustled over.
Lucy.
He greeted me with a warm smile, reached out and squeezed my arm.
I was so sorry to hear about Wilfred, Lord Samuel. That must have been hard for you.
I wanted to pour out my heart, but much as I liked Maxwell because there was something so comforting about him, Jess had told me that Rosie's was one of the elementals' information-gathering sites. Anything I said to Maxwell would be passed further up the chain to Roscoe, his lover and head of the pit, the fire elemental's ruling body. So instead I gave a sad smile. Yeah, I agreed. It wasn't the best day.
Let's get you in common and settled upstairs. I'm sorry we can't fit you in tonight, but some of Lord Wiltshire's vampirs are already booked in.
Mixing vampires and werewolves is a big no-no. Underworld didn't get it so wrong when it painted the rivalry between the two species. We've been killing each other since the dawn of time, or some equally dramatic era. It's not a problem, I assured him. We'll be fine. If I'd felt more secure at my leadership, I would have brought some of the pack with me to stay in the other to protect me in Manners whilst we were ripped from our wolves. But I didn't feel secure. Not even a little bit, so we were a team of 2.
3?
Esme objected. You're about to be taken from the team, I disagreed glumly. When I went into the common realm, Esme disappeared. She'd been annoyingly close-mouthed about where she went when we were separated, and each time I suffered a panic-inducing fear that she wouldn't come back. So far, she always had. We headed to the back room, the portal to the other realm. You think it would be filled with shimmery lights or something, but no. You walk into it and back out again. When you walk out, you're in the opposite realm to the one where you started. Simple. Esme was turning around and stretching out. She settled down for a rest, and I tried not to feel anxious at the thought of losing her from my mind.
I'll be back soon, she reassured me. Relax. We'll be reunited in a few hours.
As always, her calm soothed me. Thanks. Have a good rest.
And you.
She sent me an affectionate lick across my hair, the equivalent of a kiss goodnight. She may be a kick-ass killer wolf, but she's my kick-ass killer wolf. And maybe one day she'll finally grasp that casual killing is frowned on. Maybe I could read her some of the Kantian ethics that Lord Samuel had been so fond of. As I stepped into the back room, Esme was ripped away from me, a separation so total and complete that it took my breath away. Tears filled my eyes, and I took a moment to catch my breath. I couldn't let anyone see how much I suffered from her loss. When I was steady, I stepped back out into the common realm. I felt a skitter of anxiety at being unable to change. Sure, I was still faster and tougher than most people, but I had no wolf. No Esme. To distract myself, I looked around. The dryads were still laughing, but now their skin was pale pink instead of a dark forest green. Gone were the elemental's flames. Instead, waves of curly hair cascaded down their brows. I couldn't see the triangle of the other on the witches' foreheads, though I knew it was there. The spoon in the wizard's cup appeared to be standing still. The other realm protected itself from discovery, hiding or masking magic from non-magical eyes. Everyone in the cafe looked ordinary, but they weren't. I was in the common realm whilst they had remained in the other. I stared at the fire elementals. If they wanted to, they could broil me where I stood. I was still trying to see them with flames dancing on their heads, but try as I might, all I could see was hair. Manners had followed me through the portal, and for now, we were ordinary and vulnerable. He hastily escorted me up to the flat, and I relaxed a little more as we went through each heavy door secured by thick metal bolts. The flat is a huge, open-plan space. A fire was roaring, no surprise there, and Maxwell had turned on the TV for us.
You can stay here until 3 p.m. when the cleaning crew is due to arrive, then you're welcome to stay downstairs for a couple of hours. Most of the day rechargers try to go back to the other around 6 p.m. to maximise their charging time.
Rosie's officially closes at 6:30, except for night guests.
I'll leave you to it. Call down if you need anything.
He strode away, closing and locking the door behind him. I wished the place felt less like a luxurious jail cell. To distract myself, I turned to the TV. "Movie marathon," I suggested to Manners.
"Sure."
"What kind of thing do you like?"
"I'm easy, Alpha. You pick what suits you."
I was tempted to put on a rom-com just to teach him a lesson. I didn't like all this deferential treatment, but we didn't know each other well enough yet for me to tell him to quit it. Every time he said Alpha, it put a distance between us. Distance I despised. I needed at least one friend. I'm a social creature, and being a pariah was killing me. Instead, I scrolled through the movie channel and picked Gone in 60 Seconds. Everyone enjoys a car movie, right? The time flew by, and Manners seemed to relax a little. When 3 o'clock rolled by, we reluctantly headed back downstairs. We had a coffee. I had a latte without salt in it. The minutes seemed to crawl by. It was much better to recharge overnight and sleep through the vulnerable 10 or 12 hours. This was uncomfortable. I felt like all eyes were on us, though they probably weren't. The customers in the cafe had changed, so now I had no idea what species anyone around me was. I tried to console myself that they were simple common realmers, although that was highly unlikely. Rosie's has runes on it to keep ordinary common folk away, making it an other cosmopolitan melting pot. "Tell me a joke," I said to Manners, desperate for something to distract me. His grey eyes studied me as he sipped his flat white.
"You have one wolf in your head. Guess how many wolves Mozart had?"
I blinked. He had a wolf.
7. That's why they called him Wolfgang.
I groaned. "Oh, that's a terrible joke." He grinned.
"It seemed relevant."
"Was he really a werewolf?" I asked dubiously.
"So the wolves have claimed."
"We have claimed," I corrected gently. He nodded acknowledgement. He was a wolf now, not brethren, but I wondered how long it would take for him to truly accept that. The itch between my shoulder blades got too much. It was 5 p.m. We were only an hour away from switching to the other realm, but I needed some fresh air or I was going to barrel into that portal right now. "Let's go for a walk," I suggested, pushing back from the table.
"We're safer here."
Manners disagreed quietly.
"While we're in the hall, we're under Maxwell's protection."
"I just need some air. We'll be 10 minutes, tops." He grimaced, but nonetheless stood up. I was the boss. I guess I'd finally found an upside to being alpha. Rosie's is situated in a row of shops. There's everything you could need. A convenient shop, Chinese takeout, a laundromat, and a funeral home. We walked up and down them, then strolled around a block of houses. As we turned back to Rosie's, I heard a shout.
"Werewolf!"
A man appeared out of nowhere. Vampir. Fuck. Chapter 6. He flew toward me and I felt a moment of pure panic. This shit was Esme's domain, but Esme wasn't there. I was an accountant. I had no martial arts moves. I had nothing. Luckily, Manners wasn't so inept, and he instantly swept me behind him. He had a knife in each hand, and as the crazed vampire leapt towards us, he stabbed him. The wounds didn't seem to bother the vampire, who kept on coming. Then Manners bodily threw the vampire back, and the creature slipped into the shadows and disappeared. Manners stepped over to me and tugged me back until I was standing under a street lamp, where there were no shadows for the vampire to suddenly phase out of. He'd have to attack us front on. No sooner were we under the lamp than the vampire attacked again. This time Manners rebuffed him with some well-aimed punches, but the vampire kept returning. Finally, Manners threw him to the ground and knelt on his chest.
"Stay down or I'll end you permanently,"
he threatened. I was impressed with his restraint, but quite honestly, we didn't need to attract the attention of the connection, the magical police, by killing a vampire. Someone cleared their throat and spoke.
"Oh dear, what do we have here? 2 wolves in the common realm, and it's the new alpha, no less. I recognize you, Lucy Barrett, and of course, we all recognize a dragon bitch when we see one."
Dragons and vampires get along as well as vampires and werewolves. Using blood to sustain you does tend to attract a raft of enemies, even though vampires supposedly used blood donations these days.
Out for a stroll? Not your wisest idea. I see our little Graham found you.
The man who stepped out of the shadows was dressed in a suit and looked utterly urbane. I couldn't see his killer incisors, but I knew they were there.
Graham is new, he continued. A babe in the wood. He hasn't had any blood today. Let him up nicely. I'll take him to get a nice blood bag, and we won't mention this little incident to Wiltshire. How does that sound? I let him up and you're going to stroll away.
Manners' tone was laced with disbelief.
Much as I would love to slice and dice you both, we're on a schedule. And we're late.
The vampire glared at Graham. Graham didn't know he was beaten, however, and tried again to bite Manners. With an irritated glance, Manners reversed the blade of his knife and struck him with the solid handle. Graham slumped to the ground unconscious.
Was that really necessary? The suited vampire complained. Now I'm going to have to wait for him to come around. You've made me even more late.
He sighed.
Skedaddle, pups. And more important things to do than teach stray dogs some manners.
I wasn't sure if the phrase was a coincidence or whether he knew exactly who Greg Manners was. If Esme had been there, she'd have pounded the rude vampire's face into the tarmac. But she wasn't there, so I gave Manners a look, and he obligingly stepped away from Graham's inert body. Weapon still drawn, he moved close to me, watching the suited and booted vamp's every move. We did not skedaddle. Instead, we watched and waited under the protection of the light from the street lamp.
Settle down,
the vampire said to Manners, like he was a skittish horse.
If I wanted you dead, you would be.
He strolled over to Graham and hoisted him over his shoulder, before walking into the shadows and disappearing. My brain struggled to compute, telling me that I must have blinked and missed them getting into a car or something. Surely they couldn't have just evaporated. We waited a tense minute or two to see if another attack was coming. I swallowed hard as reality kicked in. If Manners hadn't been with me, I would have been dead. My little stroll had put both of us at risk, and Manners had saved my life.
Come on, let's move,
he instructed me firmly. We quick marched back to Rosie's and, by unspoken agreement, headed straight for the portal at the back. I was done with the common realm. As I walked out of the portal, Esme immediately reappeared. My relief was total and profound. You're back.
Of course, did you have a nice relax?
Not really. I shared my memory of the encounter with the vampires. For some reason, her outrage made me feel better.
We'll rip their throats out next time, she promised.
The man in the suit didn't try to attack us, I pointed out, which led to the inevitable question, why the hell not? Manners and I got into our car and headed for home. The journey was silent, neither of us sure what to say. As we parked up, Manners turned to me.
You froze,
he said. His tone wasn't accusatory, just factual. I'm an accountant, I said lamely.
You're an alpha werewolf, head of the home county's pack. We can't have you being that vulnerable again. I'm going to train you in hand-to-hand combat. Next time, you won't freeze.
I nodded. Thank you.
No problem. I've trained lots of soldiers before.
Not for that. Thank you for saving my life.
No problem,
he repeated. But something had changed between us, even if Manners didn't know it. If he'd stepped back for a moment during the confrontation with the vampires, I would have been dead. Afterwards, he could have fought and killed Graham. By default, he would have returned to the pack as Alpha. Instead, he'd saved me. You'd make a better Alpha than me, I said in a small voice.
Nonsense,
Esme objected.
We are an excellent Alpha.
You are?
No, I am rash. You temper me. We will rebuild this sorry pack into something worthy. Together. I don't want to be Alpha,
Manners said finally.
I'm used to following orders and I prefer it that way.
Then I'll keep giving you orders, I said, but my voice came out breathless. and a bit flirtatious. Whoops. I cleared my throat and tried to regain a business-like tone. There could be no hitting on the only ally I'd got, because he was an ally. Somehow, during the last 12 hours, he'd shifted from the acquaintance column to the ally column. It was a lonely column with only 2 names in it, Jess and Mrs. Dawes, and Mrs. Dawes' name still had a question mark next to it. I'd work on it. One day soon that ally column was going to be so super busy I'd have to make a new spreadsheet. So, let's not mention this to the pack, I suggested. I had enough problems without them thinking that I was weak and incompetent.
Agreed.
Manners gave a slight smile. Still, we sat in the car together, neither of us making a move to get out. Someone put stuff in my shampoo, I blurted out. Manners frowned and his jaw tightened.
And someone put itching powder in my underwear.
Oddly, knowing that he'd been targeted too made me feel better.
We'll find out who, and we'll make them sorry they were ever born,
he promised darkly. That's the spirit, I said brightly. They're not going to know what's hit them. His gaze lingered on my face.
No, they're not.
We've got this, Esme said firmly. Yeah, I agreed. We've got this. Chapter 7. My fighting spirit lasted as long as it took me to march into my masculine office. It was deserted and I had nothing to do. I brightened. I could always do a new spreadsheet. There was always data to be organised. I pulled out Lord Samuel's paperwork. It was on actual paper. How quaint. I spent a happy hour transcribing details about the pack into a spreadsheet. Lord Samuel had a file with a sheet of information about each werewolf under his command. The data was woefully sparse. Name, address, age and occupation. It had nothing that was helpful, like were they an ice cream or cake person? Did they like Rocky or Die Hard? No conversation starters to help me melt the ice. I got to Archie's information and sighed. It was obvious that young Archie was involved in the spate of pranks. He'd walked out when I was searching for Bobby's toy. It hadn't been subtle, and he might as well have walked around playing a tuba, shouting that he was responsible. I'd let it slide so far because, well, I killed his dad. If anyone had killed my dad, it was unthinkable. Try as I might, I couldn't begin to imagine what Archie was feeling. I was adopted when I was 3, and I had no idea what my birth family had been like because my memory was one big blank, and I could remember nothing before the adoption. The psychologist said it wasn't surprising because of my age and the way the human brain is designed to protect itself. But I'd always wondered if the massive blank was because I'd been raised in an abusive home for the first 3 years of life. Maybe I had been, maybe not. Chances were I'd never know. But my adoptive family were everything. Mum and Dad and their biological son. My brother, Ben. They'd had him first, and never for one moment had they made me feel like I was less of their daughter than he was their son. My dad is gentle, kind, soft-spoken. He's often found in the kitchen baking something. Mum is firm, kind, with a no-nonsense attitude. She would happily battle anyone who dared to cross her family. She's a nurse, so my miracle recovery from near death had been a bit hard for her to accept. I could hardly tell her about magic, so I was left with half-hearted lies about a miraculous health centre with a trial drug that had saved my life. She accepted the story because she wanted to, but deep down, my miracle troubled her. I'd kept a little distance from my family recently because I hated to lie to them, but that was only compounding my crippling loneliness. There was a knock on my door. "Come in," I called. Sitting up straighter in my seat, I did my best to project calm authority. I slumped a little when Manners walked in. He was wearing fresh jeans, a painted-on t-shirt, and a leather jacket. He hadn't put on aftershave, but the faint scent of his shower gel was divine. He looked fine. His face was carefully blank. I sighed. Bad news, then. "What's up now?" I asked flatly.
"Someone TP'd our car."
TP'd?
Toilet papered. They've wrapped the car in toilet paper.
We've only been back an hour, I objected.
It only took a few minutes to clear it up, but I thought you'd want to know.
Yes, I wanted to know, all right. This shit was getting under my skin. A thought occurred to me. Were you heading out? I asked, slightly wounded that he hadn't asked me to go with him. He shifted his weight.
Yeah,
he said reluctantly.
I was just going to visit a friend while you're safe in the mansion.
Safety is a relative term. The pack was hostile, but with Mark Oates whipped and wounded, I didn't feel like anyone was going to attack me any time soon. Besides, it was nearly 8 p.m, so I could go and hide in my bedroom. It looked like Manners was going out on a date, and I refused to admit that the feeling in my tummy was anything to do with that. I was probably hungry. Yeah, that was it. Hungry. Sure, no problem. Off you pop. I was aiming for a light and airy tone, but I missed the mark and hit manic instead. Have a great time. I was rambling.
Stop talking now,
Esme advised. I wanted to thump my head repeatedly on the desk, but I wait for Manners to leave first. I gave him my brightest smile. Too bright. I was shit at playing it cool because I hadn't had to do it cool in a long time. If ever. Normally, men were falling all over me.
Maybe I shouldn't leave,
he said finally. Because of toilet paper? Don't be ridiculous, I said firmly. This shit is juvenile crap.
I know. The real danger is still assessing us.
Geez, way to make me feel better. So it's fine, off you go. You need a break too.
I'm okay,
he objected. Go. I waved my hands at him. Have fun. That's an order.
Yes, Alpha.
There was that word again, reminding me I was his boss. He strode away, shutting the door behind him. Now I let my head drop on the desk and gave a long groan.
He's going to mate with someone,
Esme said confidently. Esme, that's none of our business.
You want to mate with him. You should chew on his face a little and then drag him across the ground.
Chew on his face? I laughed.
Just a little nibble to let him know you're interested.
I'm not interested, I said tightly.
I'm in your head, she pointed out,
amusement lacing her tone. I didn't have a comeback for that, so I ignored her. I closed my computer. Data inputting had lost its shine. My tummy grumbled, and that made me feel slightly better. See? I really was hungry. I headed down to the kitchen. Mrs. Dawes was humming to herself as she washed the huge pile of dishes. I watched as she worked. She scrubbed the plates in a very specific way, drawing the soapy scrubbing brush across the plates like she was painting a work of art. Each of us find joy in different things, I guess, but cleaning is very low on my list. Want any help? I offered. Alpha, you startled me. She flashed me a breathless smile. I'm fine, honestly. Have you eaten? No, I admitted. Let me fix you a plate. She squeezed the bubbles off her perfectly manicured fingers and removed her apron, tossing it over the still warm oven door to dry. There was a gargantuan pot of stew on the hob. Lamb, if I wasn't mistaken. My stomach gave an extra loud rumble. I'd been too unsettled to eat properly at Rosie's. I sat at the breakfast bar and Mrs. Dawes passed me a warm bowl of stew, complete with 2 dumplings. I demolished the lot with gusto. More? She asked with a knowing smile. Yes, please. She gave me another bowl, complete with 2 more dumplings, that went the same way as the first one. I loved this werewolf metabolism. Wine? She offered. I looked longingly at the bottle of red on the counter, imagining its tantalizing aroma, but I shook my head. With no backup, I needed to keep a clear head. No thanks. I looked at the pile of dishes. A lot of the pack had obviously eaten dinner together, but I hadn't been invited. I tried to squash the hurt that lanced my heart. They didn't like me, and that was fine.
You're too concerned with their feelings, Esme offered. Mrs. Dawes feeds us, Manners protects us. What more do we need?
Friendship.
You have me.
I do, and I'm so grateful for that. I sent her a mental hug.
If you want their respect, you need to earn it.
How?
We cannot let the pranks continue. It is disrespectful. Ignoring them shows weakness.
Or tolerance, I countered.
Weakness, she affirmed. That is how they see it, so that is how it is.
You think we should speak to Archie?
I think you should speak to Archie. Yapping is your thing.
I looked at Mrs. Dawes. Do you have any ice cream? Ben & Jerry's? She shook her head. Sorry, Alpha, I'm all out of ice cream. I'll buy some tomorrow, and I'll make sure to get your favourite brand. Thanks. I'd have to do some dirty work without sugar to fortify me. I squared my shoulders. I could do this. Chapter 8. I knocked firmly on Archie's door. The 19-year-old was one of the mansion's resident werewolves, and his room was on the first floor next to Mark Oates. Loud music was blowing out of Oates' room. Rude. Archie was laughing as he opened the door, but the humour drained away instantly when he saw who was standing on the other side of it.
Alpha,
he said loudly, but his tone was confrontational with the hint of a sneer. Archie, send your guests away. It's time we had a chat. I spoke firmly, channeling one of the directors at work. She never asked for permission, she just told you how it was. I hadn't particularly liked her because she was one of those women who dragged others down, but in this instance I needed her no-nonsense attitude. He turned back to his room.
The fun police is here, you'd better go. You want me to bite him?
No, we'll do some yapping first, I said, adopting Esme's terminology.
And then I can bite him?
She asked hopefully. We'll see how the chat goes. A few other young members of the pack, Marissa, Elena, and Noah, slunk out. Marissa gave me a false, bright smile as she slipped past. Elena ducked her head and didn't make eye contact, and Noah turned bright red. The other pranksters, no doubt. In fact, all of you, come with me. I marched them back through the pack living room and down the corridor to my office. I take a leaf out of my old head teacher's book. Noah, stand here. Marissa, stand here. Elena, you're here. Wait in silence. Archie, in my office. I spaced them out along the corridor, giving them all a glare for good measure. They shifted foot to foot, looking guilty and awkward. Good. God help me if they realized I could do nothing if they started talking or just walked off. We could expel them from the pack. For talking. For disrespect. Well, that's not how I want to run things. Respect is earned, Esme repeated. I'm on it, I replied grimly. I shut the door behind Archie. Sit down, I ordered sharply. Time to pull on my best bitch impression. Archie slouched indolently in the seat opposite. Sit up, I snapped at him. You're not a slug, you have a spine. Use it. He straightened reluctantly and glared back at me. The pranks have got to stop. He blinked. What pranks? He tried. I'm not buying that for a minute, Archie. Listen. I leaned forward. You have a right to be upset. You've lost your father. I'm sorry for your loss, and I'm incredibly sorry that I was a part of it. But Jimmy Rain had already condemned your father to death by coating his claws in poison. If I'd waited, your father would still be dead, and Rain would be sitting opposite you now. And if I were Rain, you'd be dead for pulling those pranks.
I wouldn't have pulled the pranks on Rain, he muttered. He's psycho.
Exactly, I agreed. That's why your father didn't want him in charge here. Like it or not, he picked me, so here we are. Everyone is watching you pull these pranks. I've let it slide because I feel bad about your father, but I can't let it slide any more. The next one will have consequences, and you're not going to like that. I paused to let the threat sink in. I've considered expelling you from the pack. Archie rose out of his seat. You can't do that. This is my home. Sit down, I barked. He perched on the arm of the chair. Even now he was not following my orders, and it pissed me off. Put your ass on that seat or I'll make you, I growled. Even in human form, I was extraordinarily strong. I had no idea how strong Archie was, but if he pushed me, we were going to find out. He glared back, and tension crackled in the air. The potential for violence hummed in my muscles. I didn't want to hurt him, but I was sick to death of the hostility. The moment passed, and Archie sat down properly. You think you're so perfect, he spat, just because you're beautiful and clever. My beauty has been a thorn in my side most of my life. Men are intimidated by it, women are jealous of it, so it's a constant barrier to forming friendships and relationships. My perfection is my curse, but I'm not going to make myself look worse just to make others feel better. My mum firmly believes that I should take pride in my appearance and my successes, just as if I were a man. You don't see Harry Potter apologising for being a sensational Quidditch player at age 11, or being phenomenal at defence against the dark arts. Man, I could use some lessons in defence against the dark arts. Maybe Amber Delia, a witch extraordinaire, could teach me. I made eye contact with Archie. I'm not perfect, I insisted. I can't ice skate, I can't knit, I can't bake a scone. For some unknown reason, they always come out in little flat discs and they just won't rise. I can become data-obsessed, and I'm a little too attached to my spreadsheets. I'm human too, Archie. The last came out on a sigh. You don't have to like me, I said, my voice low. But you are going to listen to my orders and obey them. You will respect my authority. Respect is earned, he sneered back. I hate that shitty phrase. You haven't given me a chance to earn it. I've been alpha barely 2 days and you're constantly undermining me, trying to pull the rug out from underneath me. I tilted my head, considering. Do you want to be alpha? Because if you do, have some balls and challenge me. No, he said slowly. I don't want to be alpha. Not yet. And now his threat was equally clear. Not yet, but one day. At least now we all knew where we stood. You let me know when that changes and I'll be ready to fight you, tooth and claw, I retorted. In the meantime, stop the shitty pranks, or I'll make you a loner faster than you can say packless. I'll be clear. He nodded sullenly. Yes, Alpha, I parroted. I'm clear. Yes, Alpha. I'm clear. Good boy, run along, Archie, and send in Noah. He squared his shoulders. None of this was their fault. It was all my idea. They shouldn't be punished for following me. Each of us is responsible for our own actions. Sometimes that responsibility is all we have. Send in Noah. Noah's a good guy. He's just easily led astray, Archie argued. He likes me. More fool him. If he follows where you lead, then may I suggest you lead with a better sense of direction? Send him in. I said the last bit with real bite in my tone. Archie was talking back to me. I was trying to establish some authority as a big bad alpha leader, and he was still pushing back. Yapping is annoying. I could bite him, Esme offered helpfully. Thanks, but I want to keep our quick shift in our back pocket for now. Archie isn't the real threat here. Oates, I agreed. Think of the deposed second-in-command. Third ship wouldn't rest easy on his shoulders. He'd be gunning for me one way or another. Archie reluctantly left my office, and a few moments later Noah scooted in. Sit. I gestured to the chair, and he sat instantly. That was better. Archie has taken full responsibility for the pranks. Noah swallowed hard. We all did them. He shouldn't be punished any more than the rest of us. Yes, it would be preferable to expel you all, I said, keeping my tone conversational. Expel? As he whispered the word, all the colour drained from his face. Please, Alpha, let us stay. They were just some silly pranks. No harm done. No harm? What do you think the pack thinks, watching me be pranked? Do you think they consider me strong or weak? Noah's mouth dropped open and he shuddered. My parents will kill me. We didn't mean to undermine you. That's bullshit, Noah, isn't it? You knew what you were doing. We won't do it again. Damn right you won't. Put one claw out of place and you're out of here. This is your last chance. Am I clear? Relief coursed through him and he sagged into the seat. Crystal clear. Get out and send in Marissa. Elena didn't do anything. She was just a lookout while we hid the fish. That was it. She didn't do anything else. That's enough, I said firmly. She participated. Noah, I appreciate your loyalty, but I will deal with all of you as I see fit. Send in Marissa. I'll deal with Elena last. Yes, Alpha. He was simmering down, but resentment still poured out of his eyes. I wasn't here to make friends, and maybe it was time I realized that.
The pack didn't need to like me, just to respect me. There was that damned word again. Marissa sat down with poise and a wide smile. She crossed her legs at her ankles and rested her hands on her lap. "How are you, Alpha?" "I'm fine, thank you, Marissa." "And you?" I said, matching her civility. "I'm well, thank you, Alpha." "Wonderful, we're both spiffy. And we both know why you're here." "You have me at a loss, Alpha. I'm not quite sure why you've summoned me. Is that really the story you want to stick to?" Her smile didn't falter. "I'm sorry." She batted her eyelashes at me. "You will be," I muttered under my breath. I cleared my throat. "To be clear, all of your companions have confessed to carrying out the pranks with you. Your false protests will make your punishment worse." The smile dropped off her face like it had been wiped away. It had been as false as her spectacular eyelashes. Her expression grew sulky. "I hardly did a thing. You put salt in my latte and shit in my shampoo." I hazarded a guess that the latter trick had been hers because it had bitch warfare all over it. "Wolf shit, not human shit," she protested. "Well, that's so much better," I said sarcastically. She gave a one-shouldered shrug and tried to summon up the smile again. "Just light-hearted pranks, Alpha." I put my elbows on the desk and laced my fingers. "I'm sure your expulsion will be very light-hearted too." Her eyes went impossibly wide. "No, you can't." "I absolutely can." I paused long enough to make her sweat. "But I won't, this time. Next time I won't be so lenient. You're being told here and now to desist all pranks, not just against me, but against anyone in the pack. And if I so much as hear a whisper of you being cruel, you'll be back in here so quick you'll get whiplash." She regained some of her composure. "Who decides what is cruel?" She tapped a talon-like nail against her lips. Her fake nails were long and shaped to a fine point. I wondered if they survived a shift or whether they were ripped from her like our clothes. "Filling a car with balloons is funny. Putting shit in shampoo isn't. Use your discretion, and if you don't have any, check with me before you do it. I don't mind light-hearted fun, but a campaign of bullying will not be allowed." "I'm not a bully," she protested. "All evidence suggests the contrary," I said dryly. Marissa and Elena were older than the boys, early 20s at least. Marissa was probably a similar age to me, but somehow she felt young and coddled. Well, the swaddling was coming off. I'd be keeping my eye on her from now on. "Off you go. Send in Elena." "Yes, Alpha." She hopped off the chair, all obsequious obedience. I didn't buy it any more than her empty smiles. When Elena shuffled in, she was hunched in on herself, and her hands were trembling. I immediately changed tactics. "Take a seat, Elena," I said gently. "You know why you're here, don't you?" She nodded, eyes fixed firmly. "I accept your punishment, Alpha," she said in the tiniest of voices. She was braced, physically braced, for a physical punishment. "She's been bitten too many times," Esme murmured. She was right. Elena had been abused, though I couldn't for 1 second believe it had been by Lord Samuel. I racked my brains for the paltry information I had about her, but I hadn't transcribed it yet, and her data hadn't made its way into my long-term memory. "You transferred here from another pack?" I asked. "Yes, Alpha. I don't know how things were done there, but you won't be hurt here." Her body remained tense. "I submit to your justice. I accept your punishment," she reiterated, like she was afraid my words were some sort of test. "Elena, you're safe here. Poor choices won't get you beaten." She finally looked up from the floor and met my eyes, searching for the truth. I gave her what I hoped was a reassuring smile. She swallowed hard. "I knew it was wrong. I'm sorry. I let myself get swept up in the moment. You won't do it again, will you?" "No, Alpha, I swear I won't." A rumble of thunder interrupted our discussion. I looked out of the window. "It's raining cats and dogs out there," I commented lightly. thinking of Manners in his paltry leather jacket. But then he'd probably already taken it off. "What? Why would the cats and dogs fall from the sky? What's happening?" Esme asked urgently. I shouldn't have found her panic and confusion funny, but I struggled not to burst out laughing. It's only a phrase. It means it's raining heavily. Why wouldn't you just say that? It's just a common idiom. It's ridiculous, she huffed. Esme had helped steer my thoughts away from Manners, and that was a good thing. I didn't need to go there. He was my second and my only ally. I couldn't let my thoughts become wayward. I focused on the issue at hand, namely Elena. I threatened all the others with expulsion. I studied her. You don't need that. No, Mom. I had to stop myself from telling her not to Mom at me. It made me feel old, and I couldn't be much more than a year or two older than she was. I stopped myself because ultimately I wanted her respect, however she chose to show it. I would have to learn to accept a Mom now and again. Off you go, then. She blinked. That's it, I affirmed. Make good choices. Good night. She rose slowly, like she was waiting for me to change my mind and pounce on her while her back was turned. I made a mental note to look into her personnel file, what little there was of it. She closed the door behind her, and I slumped back into the seat, rubbing my fingers across my temple. Your yapping worked. I hope so. It's difficult to tell. With a bite, you always know if it's worked, Esme pointed out. You know they're bleeding, but you don't know if they're deterred, I argued. Time will tell. What will time tell us? It means we won't know if the yapping worked until some time in the future, whether they will either listen to me or not. They will listen. If not, I will bite them. Chapter 9. I felt cautiously optimistic as I showered. My shampoo had been replaced with a new bottle, so I opened the lid and sniffed it warily. It smelled of coconut. We were good. I slathered it into my hair and felt relaxed, for the first time in days. Okay, I was really no further along in getting the respect of the vast majority of the pack, but I had stopped the pranksters, and I felt like our tete-a-tete had achieved its purpose. They would at least hesitate before they were openly disrespectful again. That was something. I took the time to dry my hair before I cleansed, toned, and moisturized my face. The routine soothed me. I was just about to slip into bed when headlights on the drive caught my eye. It was Manners, returning from his friend. I had spent a good hour binging on Gilmore Girls before deciding a shower was in order, so it was late. I checked the time. 2 a.m. My lips tightened, my stomach churned, and I had absolutely no right to feel the way that I did. Manners and I barely knew each other. He was a free agent, far freer than me. Maybe he was right not to want alpha-ship. Nobody scrutinized the beta, but it was all eyes on me. I wished it didn't feel like they were all hoping for me to trip up. I closed my curtains and slid into bed. Sleep was a long time coming. The next morning I woke more determined than ever to make inroads into improving relations with my pack. Perhaps I'd made some headway with Archie and the other younger members of the pack, but Oates and his cohort were the real threat. I needed to do something about him, and I had no idea what. I went to the kitchen early. Marissa was there with Siren, who glared at me as Marissa offered her usual bright smile. Siren didn't offer me a latte of spit or salt, though, so I took that as positive, if glacial, progress. "Morning, ladies," I said as I grabbed a coffee. "Morning, Alpha," Marissa beamed. There was no sign of the sulkiness I'd witnessed yesterday. Siren got up and walked out. Nice. Marissa flicked me a glance and gave a slight shrug before following her. I sighed. Mrs. Dawes tossed me a smile. "A new Alpha is a big adjustment. Lord Samuel was Alpha for a long time." I nodded. I knew that. Jess had told me that Mrs. Dawes had held a candle for Lord Samuel, but despite that, she didn't seem at all hostile. Maybe she accepted that I'd acted for the greater good. She made me a bacon sandwich, doused liberally with tomato ketchup, and I fell upon it with gratitude. When I devoured my breakfast, I decided to go to my office.
I made the mistake of taking the route that took me through the pack living room. It fell silent as I walked in. Way to make a girl feel paranoid. The room was unusually busy, with far more pack members gathered there than I'd seen before. Tristan and Oates were openly glaring at me. Liam was sitting opposite them on the couch. Siren was sitting near Oates, looking at him with Bambi eyes, and Marissa was next to her friend, looking a little put out. I offered Liam a small smile, which he didn't return. Before I became alpha, Liam was quite nice to me, but I guess those days were gone. It looked like Oates was holding court, whipping up support against me. It wasn't ideal. "Let me bite, Oates," Esme suggested. "Then the rest will fall into line." "I don't want us to rule by fear. You've told me a pack should be family." "It should be, but first we need to survive. Oates is looking at us like I look at a deer. I don't like it. We should kill him." "We are not killing him. We can't just kill people because they don't like you." "We are alpha." "If he kills us, he becomes alpha. We are a target until we convince the pack we are not weak. Killing Oates would make that clear." Her tone was patient and slow, like she was explaining something complex to a toddler. "Absolutely not," I said firmly. "I knew you would say that. That's why we should bite him. Just a bit of light mauling," she wheedled. "No mauling." It was Esme's turn to sigh. "Sometimes talking to you is like bouncing on a dead horse." It took me a moment to grasp her meaning. "Flogging a dead horse," I corrected. "Flogging, bouncing, both are silly activities to carry out on a dead animal. They should be eaten." At least she had distracted me from the animosity in the room. Tristan and Oates were whispering to each other in such low voices that I couldn't make out what they were saying. Their eyes didn't leave me, though, so it was obvious who they were discussing. Tristan was sporting a puffy red eye. Must have been a very recent acquisition because werewolves heal fast. I'd been staring at them too long. "Gentlemen," I greeted them. Neither responded, and I kept my smile on my face with effort. The only one who acknowledged me was David. Even Sonia, Bobby's mum, wouldn't look at me. I walked through the living room with my spine crawling. All eyes were on me, and it was hard to walk through with my back exposed to the enemy. I kept my eyes on the windows around me, so I'd see movement in the reflections if they went for me. Finally, I shut the door behind me and let out an explosive breath of relief. That was tense. I hurried the last distance to the relative safety of my office. When I opened the door, I was relieved to see it wasn't empty. Manners was there, sitting in my guest seat. "Good morning."
"Morning, Alpha."
I wanted to ask about his night, but that was rude and intrusive, so I bit my tongue. Wasn't easy, though. I sat down behind my desk and swiveled the chair to look at him. "Tristan has the start of a black eye, I'd say. Do you know anything about that?" Manners gave a fractional shrug.
"He made some uncomplimentary comments about you."
I didn't ask for the specifics if he didn't offer them. "Did you punch him in the face?"
"Amongst other places."
"How many people have you hurt in the pack?"
"Just Oates and Tristan, so far."
The "so far" was a bit ominous. How many people did he think he'd have to hurt before things settled down? "How many people have you threatened?" He smiled a little.
"Few more than that."
"Aren't I supposed to be the intimidating one?"
"They see you as a pretty little white girl. Intimidating is a hard sell just now."
I tried not to feel happy that he thought I was pretty. "Esme thinks we need to bite someone."
"She's probably not wrong," he admitted. "A dash of violence and unpredictability might give Oates and the others pause."
"I'll think about it." There was a knock on the door, then Liam opened it without waiting for me to invite him in.
"There's someone to see you in the packed living room, Alpha."
Despite the title, his tone wasn't deferential in the slightest. I was being summoned. That got my back up. Maybe it was time I listened to Esme and Manners. I'd been yapping at the pack. I'd been smiley and friendly, but it obviously wasn't working. All that was happening was that Manners was fighting my battles for me. "Is there now?" I replied coolly. Liam faltered a little.
"Oates asked you to come."
I steepled my fingers. "I'll be along when I'm done here. You can go." He beat a hasty retreat and shut the door behind him. "Who do you think they've brought to see me?"
I asked.
No one good,
Manners answered. He pushed his jeans back under his ankle holsters so his weapons were accessible and visible. Shit was about to go down. Esme was vibrating with energy. Are you ready? I asked her.
Always.
Her eagerness steadied me. Whatever was waiting for us in the living room, I had no doubt that she, Manners, and I could deal with it. I hope it's not a troll, I muttered.
Trolls aren't so bad. It's ogres you have to be wary of,
Manners explained. Great. Way to make me feel better.
It's probably not a troll or ogre.
What do you think it is?
Not much point in guessing, so let's go and see. We'll deal with it. Whatever it is. I'll walk in first.
I shook my head. No, I need to take point on this. Just be ready to back me up.
As you wish.
We fell silent as we walked down the corridor, then stopped outside the living room to listen for clues. We couldn't hear anything. I was stalling, but more time wasn't going to help me. I needed to get my act together and kick some ass. I'm going to miss these jeans, I sighed to Esme. They make my bum look great.
We might have time to strip before we shift.
I don't think Oates is going to play by the rules, I warned her.
We'll see. We're ready for him.
As I pushed open the door and walked into the living room, Oates was smirking, triumph written all over his face. It felt premature for him to celebrate. I wasn't down yet. Archie was there too, with Noah and Elena, and I felt a sting of disappointment. I thought I'd made some progress with them, but it seemed they were here to watch my downfall. I moved further into the room with Manners by my side. As the crowd moved out of the way, I finally saw what was making Oates smirk. Tristan was holding our guest. It wasn't a troll or an ogre, it was someone worse. My ex-boyfriend, James. The incubus that had fucked me, told me he loved me, and condemned me to certain death. My former lover stood with his arms bound tightly behind him, glaring at me with all his might.
I've got a gift for you, Alpha.
Oates smiled widely as he laced the last word with sarcasm.
This man stands before you for judgment. He's accused of crimes against the pack, including seducing you and causing you harm. We cannot let that stand, obviously.
Obviously, I agreed. Oates thought he was so clever undermining me, making me look like a blonde bimbo who'd been seduced by an incubus. He clearly thought I wouldn't be able to deal with James appropriately. It didn't matter that I hadn't known about magic back then. Fairness wasn't the name of the game. Luckily, I was done with playing fair too. I couldn't summon the connection to deal with James, or it would be a terminal admission of weakness. No, I had to get my hands dirty. Unluckily for James, my patience had been stripped away by days of nonsense pranks and barely concealed contempt. It was time to let the pack know who their alpha really was. The gloves are off, I murmured to Esme.
We're not wearing any gloves,
she said, confused. It means it's time to get aggressive. I felt her happiness run through me, and she chuckled darkly in the confines of our mind.
That's my favourite time.
I know. Let's do this.
With pleasure,
Esme purred. James wasn't going to know what hit him. I almost felt sorry for him. Almost. This has been Defender of the Pack, the Other Wolf series, a prequel novella written by Heather G. Harris. Narrated by Elise Gibbs. Copyright 2022 by Heather G. Harris. Production copyright by Heather G. Harris.